Picture this: radioactive traces show up in hotel rooms, on planes, even at a football stadium. It sounds like a spy novel, but in 2006 it became grim reality. Alexander Litvinenko, a former Russian spy, was murdered in London with polonium-210, a rare, highly radioactive isotope. A single teapot at the Millennium Hotel became the weapon, unleashing a global trail of evidence. This wasn't just an assassination, it was a message, written in invisible poison, that revealed how far a government might go to silence one of its own. The more you uncover, the darker the truth gets. For Alexander Litvinenko, the path that led to his death began with a decision that would change everything: to turn against the Russian state he once served. In late 2000, Litvinenko defected from the FSB, Russia's security service, after refusing to participate in an operation to assassinate Boris Berezovsky, a prominent businessman and outspoken critic of Vladimir Putin. This act of defiance wasn't just a personal risk, it marked him as a traitor in the eyes of the Kremlin. Litvinenko's refusal to be complicit in what he saw as corruption and state-sponsored violence set him on a collision course with the very institution he'd spent his career serving. Litvinenko's background gave weight to his accusations. He started his career in the KGB before moving to the FSB, where he specialized in investigating organized crime. But as he advanced, he became increasingly disillusioned by what he described as the FSB's transformation into an unchecked arm of the Kremlin, deeply involved in illegal activities. His 1998 public press conference, where he accused his superiors of ordering him to kill Berezovsky, was an extraordinary move, an open challenge to the highest levels of Russian power, especially as Vladimir Putin was rising rapidly through the ranks. After Putin became president in 1999, Litvinenko's situation grew more dangerous. Facing mounting threats, he fled Russia with his family and sought asylum in the United Kingdom. But exile didn't mean silence. From London, Litvinenko became one of Putin's most vocal critics. He gave interviews, wrote articles and published books, blowing up Russia and Lubyanka criminal group, accusing Putin and the FSB of orchestrating the 1999 apartment bombings and other crimes to consolidate power. These claims, rooted in his insider knowledge, posed a real threat to the Kremlin's reputation. Litvinenko's actions after his defection only heightened the danger he faced. He began working with MI6, sharing information on Russian state activities, organized crime, and the operations of the Russian mafia abroad, especially in Spain. His expertise helped Western intelligence agencies piece together how Russian criminal networks operated across Europe and how they connected to the Kremlin. This collaboration made him more than just a dissident. It made him a liability to the Russian state, someone with the potential to expose sensitive operations and damage powerful figures. He also built a network of contacts among other exiles and opposition figures, working to expose what he described as state-sanctioned corruption and violence. Litvinenko's criticism was direct and personal. He accused Putin not just of authoritarianism, but of using his position to enrich himself and protect a circle of loyalists, often drawing links to organized crime. These weren't vague allegations. Litvinenko used documents and his own experiences to support his claims, making them impossible for the Kremlin to ignore. By the time of his assassination, Litvinenko had become a symbol of betrayal for the Russian regime, a former insider now working to reveal its secrets. His defection, public accusations, and intelligence work placed him firmly in the crosshairs of those he once called colleagues. In the eyes of the Kremlin, he was more than a critic. He was a threat that had to be eliminated. But sometimes, the methods used to silence a voice can leave behind their own unmistakable trail. The events of November 1, 2006, began with what appeared to be an ordinary meeting at London's Millennium Hotel. Alexander Litvinenko joined Andrei Lugovoy and Dmitry Kovtun, former colleagues from Russia, at the Pine Bar. The conversation seemed routine, but the tea served to Litvinenko was anything but harmless. It had been laced with polonium-210, a radioactive isotope so potent that just 50 nanograms, less than a grain of salt, can be lethal. This wasn't a weapon you could buy on the open market. At the time, all legal polonium-210 production came from Russian nuclear reactors, specifically RBMK facilities, making its presence in London a direct link to state-level resources. The operation had all the hallmarks of careful planning. Lugovoy and Kovtun traveled from Moscow, smuggling the polonium-210 into the UK. The isotope's properties made it the perfect tool for covert assassination. It's invisible, odorless, and can slip through airport security undetected. The killers counted on these qualities, and on the fact that polonium's effects would be delayed, giving them time to return to Russia before anyone realized what had happened. But the plan unraveled in unexpected ways. As the assassins moved through London, they left behind a radioactive trail that was impossible to erase. The highest concentration of polonium-210 was found in the teapot at the Millennium Hotel's Pine Bar, the very spot where Litvinenko drank his final cup of tea. But the contamination didn't stop there. Forensic teams discovered traces at the Emirates Stadium, home to Arsenal Football Club, where Lugovoy and Kovtun attended a match. These sites became crucial pieces of evidence, mapping the assassins' movements and exposing the scale of their carelessness. Polonium-210's delayed effects meant Litvinenko felt fine as he left the hotel, unaware that his fate was sealed. By the time symptoms appeared, nausea, hair loss, and organ failure, the poison had already done irreversible damage. This delay, designed to ensure the operative's safe escape, also gave investigators precious time to piece together the evidence. As Litvinenko's condition worsened, specialists realized they were dealing with radiation poisoning, a diagnosis confirmed by the discovery of polonium in his body. What truly set this case apart was not just the weapon, but the reckless way it was handled. Lugovoy and Kovtun, lacking proper training in radiation safety, spilled the substance in hotel bathrooms and tried to clean it up with ordinary towels. Their clumsy attempts at covering their tracks only spread the contamination further, turning every careless mistake into a beacon for forensic investigators. Instead of an untraceable assassination, the operation became a case study in criminal miscalculation. The choice of polonium-210 was deliberate and chilling. Its lethality, combined with its undetectability, made it a weapon of both terror and precision. But the very qualities that made it so effective also ensured that the evidence would be impossible to contain. The radioactive trail, from a teapot in a London hotel to a football stadium, told a story more damning than any witness. Still, the question remained: could two former agents really have orchestrated such a sophisticated attack alone, armed with one of the world's rarest poisons? British investigators soon found themselves tracing not just a murder, but an operation that led straight to the heart of the Russian state. The 2016 public inquiry, led by Sir Robert Owen, left little room for doubt. The evidence showed that Andrei Lugovoy and Dmitry Kovtun acted as agents of the Russian state when they poisoned Litvinenko. The radioactive trail of polonium-210 mapped their every step, from flights out of Moscow to the teapot at the Millennium Hotel. The inquiry concluded that the assassination was probably approved by Nikolai Patrushev, then head of the FSB, and by Vladimir Putin himself. This wasn't an act of freelancers or rogue agents. It was a state-sponsored killing, embedded in the highest levels of Kremlin power. The inquiry's findings went beyond forensics. They revealed how the Russian government responded to the fallout. Andrei Lugovoy, one of the men directly implicated, didn't face justice. Instead, in 2007, he was elected to Russia's parliament, the Duma, gaining immunity from prosecution. That same year, President Putin awarded him a state medal for services to the fatherland. These actions sent a clear message. Not only would the Kremlin shield those who carried out its orders, it would openly reward them. The British government demanded extradition, but Russia refused, dismissing the case as politically motivated and refusing to cooperate with the investigation. Forensic evidence played a key role in the inquiry's outcome. The use of polonium-210, a substance only available from Russian nuclear reactors, pointed to state involvement. Traces of the isotope were found in hotels, offices, airplanes, and even at a football stadium, matching the movements of Lugovoy and Kovtun across London. The inquiry emphasized that no private group could have obtained or deployed such a rare and tightly controlled material. The choice of weapon, the coordination, and the cover-up all pointed back to the Kremlin. International bodies echoed these conclusions. In 2021, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that Russia was responsible for violating the right to life under Article 2 of the European Convention on Human Rights. The court found, beyond reasonable doubt, that Lugovoy and Kovtun carried out the killing as agents of the Russian state. Russia's refusal to provide documents or cooperate with the investigation only strengthened the case for state responsibility. The Kremlin dismissed the ruling with sarcasm, calling it subtle British humor, and refused to pay compensation to Litvinenko's widow. Litvinenko's assassination fits a broader pattern. The 2018 poisoning of Sergei Skripal in Salisbury used Novichok, a nerve agent developed by the Russian military. Alexei Navalny, another fierce critic of Putin, survived a Novichok poisoning in 2020 that was widely attributed to Russian security services. These cases, like Litvinenko's, show a willingness to use exotic poisons and state resources to silence dissent far beyond Russia's borders. The impact of the inquiry and the ECHR ruling reverberated through UK-Russia relations. The UK expelled Russian diplomats, froze assets, and suspended cooperation with the FSB. Still, these steps did little to deter further attacks or change the Kremlin's approach. The Russian government's open defiance, rewarding suspects, denying involvement, and dismissing international judgments, highlighted not only the limits of Western response, but also the message sent to other potential critics. As the evidence mounted and the diplomatic fallout grew, one thing became clear. Litvinenko's death was not an isolated event. It exposed a system willing to cross borders and break laws to eliminate threats. The radioactive trail left behind in London was more than a clue. It was a warning, one that still echoes in the cases that followed. Litvinenko's assassination stands as a stark example of the risks faced by critics of authoritarian regimes, showing how far a government will go to silence dissent beyond its own borders. In September 2021, the European Court of Human Rights found Russia responsible for his killing under Article 2 of the Convention, highlighting a clear violation of international law and human rights. This case raises urgent questions for all of us. What can the international community do to deter such operations and protect those who speak out? As Litvinenko said from his deathbed, "You may succeed in silencing one man, but the howl of protest from around the world will reverberate."